11 o'clock, and I'm going to call to order the Electric Utility Board special meeting. I'm going to call the roll, please. Mr. Davis. Here. Mr. Schultz. He will be absent. Mr. Odom. Ms. Gambles. Here. Mr. Fields. Here. Mr. Wilson. Here. Mr. Harville. Here. Mr. Ramirez. He called and said he has family in town and will not be here. Are there anybody that wants to talk to us this morning?
No speakers have signed up.
No speakers, no Easter Bunny. No, nobody's here. Okay. In that case, we are now going to, and the council does not have a quorum, do they? Okay. So we're now going to recess into executive session in accordance with VTCA Government Code 551.074A1 to deliberate appointment, employment, evaluation, and our duties of a public officer or employee, the general counsel. And this will be very brief to those of you that are in the audience. So we're now adjourned at 11:01 into executive session.
I think I'm going.
Now shows 11:15. We are back in regular session, and we're on item number 4. We will consider a resolution approving the fiscal year 2023-24 system delivery rates and discretionary rate schedules, and we'll recommend approval of the same to the City Council of the City of Lubbock pursuant to 2.03.415A of the Code Ordinances, City of Lubbock, Texas. And Harvey, will you be discussing this first?
The rates, right, Chris. Well, good morning. We're bringing back before you our proposed 2023 new retail market competition rates that are going to cover two pieces. It's going to cover it will be covering our distribution system rates, and that's the cost recovery of about $146.8 million to cover the cost for our poles and our wires to deliver the energy to our end customer, to our citizens, and that's going to be that's what I'll be showing you first. And the second part of it is going to be our discretionary rates. Those are rates that are not obviously not recaptured in our system delivery rates. They are captured, they are cost driven specifically and incurred by an individual customer, whether that's a temporary location, whether that's a tampering charge, whether it's all the different fees. It's a disconnect fee. So these are fees connected to a specific customer for a specific reason. And those amount to anywhere from between $300,000 to $500,000 in total for the year. So you see kind of we talked about that a little bit at the Finance Review Committee back on the 28th, and that was just looking at the proportionality between what you're trying to recover by these two system of rates. Before you hear are our proposed distribution system rates for residential and secondary, which are going to be our less than 10 kW, which is typically our smaller commercial customers, as well as our secondary greater than 10 K, which are going to be our medium and large commercial customers, primary customers, primary substation and transmission customers, as well as customers that have distributed generation, both for residential and for small commercial. And we have the associated per kWh rate for them, as well as if there is a demand component. Where it says $ per kWh, that's a per kilowatt hour charge. And then down below it has $ per kW. That is going to be a demand rate for that customer, and obviously that only applies to our current customers who already have demand, and that is how much stress are they putting on our system. And below for each one of those is going to be a transition charge, and that's recovering our costs for our purchase power agreement that we currently have, as well as the debt service associated with the settlement of the SPS partial requirement. We'll be talking about that bond. Matter of fact, I'll be talking a little bit more about that after this presentation. And then for the distributed generation, we also have a component in there for dollars per month, a fixed cost That is what we currently have in there, and the rate in there is current to our current tariff. It's $30 a month for both residential and for small commercial. That's intended to recover, that's intended to put ourselves in a point of cost recovery that is indifferent to whether or not a distributed generation customer basically uses no energy at all. If they use no energy at all, we still have to recover the infrastructure that goes to serve that customer. That $30 covers that cost, regardless of whether or not they are completely not buying any power from us at all, or whether or not they're actually using the rate. So what that effectively looks like, if you compare residential distributed generation to residential, we're basically charging a component of it at a fixed rate of $30 a month, and you'll notice that the dollars per kilowatt hour are significantly less than for a regular residential customer. The break-even point is about 958 hours. So if you had a distributed generation customer right next to a regular residential customer, if they both have 958 hours of power energy usage, at that rate, their bills would be perfectly identical. And so that's just there is a way of assuring that the utility will continue to recover our costs for that piece of it. So that sums up our distribution system rates. Any questions on that? Okay. I'll show you our discretionary rates. Obviously, a somewhat longer list. Distribution system charge for all rate classes, as well as generation monthly charge and transition charge, that's all covered in our current tariff, as well as down below at the very bottom section where we have our other for temporary facilities, relocation, streetlights, facilities, additional service design. That's all covered in our tariff. We have a late payment charge, and then we have our list of our current charges for discretionary rates for various services, whether it's meter service call, meter test, temporary service, reconnect, disconnect. Yes, sir.
Mr. Harvey, I have a question regarding the discretionary fees.
Yes, sir.
The street lighting facilities, that's for new implementation?
That's correct. That's for installing a new pole with a new light and connecting it onto the system.
Where is the repairs and maintenance? Is that somewhere in here?
The what?
Repair of street lighting?
That would be, this is for the installation of it. As far as for the repair of that facility, I don't think that's not covered in our discretionary rates at this time.
Are we absorbing that cost, or
Correct.
Is it somewhere else? Okay.
That would be absorbed in our system rates.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's a general, to that point, our discretionary rates and fees don't cover every single piece and capture 100% of all of the potential charges that we might do. And it's an excellent question, what you're saying, but what that does is it also helps us understand there are small components in there that we basically absorb into our delivery rates. It's a very small amount, but those are things that we just basically socialize across all of our rate classes in our rate base. It's small.
One question on the dual billing is there's some legislation that may go away at some point in time?
Yes, we have proposed right now before the legislature that there would be, we would do it.
I think we have it, but I think there is some, and Mr. Rose may be able to speak to that, there's some pending legislation that dual billing may go away. Is that correct?
Yes, we have a bill on the House and the Senate side that are identical that addresses dual billing and would remove that language and replace it with language that allows our customers to get a consolidated bill from their provider. That's one that is working its way through the legislature, and we hope that it passes here in the next 30 days or so.
Right, but we need to leave it in right now because it's not
Yes.
final until that legislation is passed and stuff.
Absolutely. It's on the House side. It's passed through House committee, but we've yet to get to the Senate side and get it finalized.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rose.
Any other questions? We do have, we are looking into what we have for our general fund transfer, our gross revenue that we give a percentage of that back to the city. We're looking at that and how we work with that. We'll have more for that for the board later, but just knowing that we're looking into that piece of it. Part of that was our discussion with the city of looking at that as a per kilowatt hour charge that we currently have in here. We've got some more conversations going on with the city on that. So for now, any other final questions? Okay, we have
If there's no further questions, then I think the recommendation is that staff recommends that we approve the system delivery rate schedule and discretionary rates with an effective date of October 1, 2023.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct? Is there a motion to that effect? Mr. Harville makes the motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fields?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any further discussion to adopt this system rate discretionary fees? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6-0.
Great.
Next on the agenda is there anything else you need?
No, not for that. Correct. So this is just kind of, as we're moving through this is related to the Series 2023 bond that we will be looking to have in place to pay off the balance of the $77.5 million for our SPS partial requirements settlement payment. That would be coming up if pending regulatory approval, of course, and if everything goes as it should, we'd be looking to make that payment in June and pay that off. The debt service on that is what would be included in our transition charge for those delivery rates that you just passed. So we have an estimate as to what that is. Right now, I just thought I would just give you a 2-second update, but we would be looking for Matt Bowles from RBC, who is our financial advisor, to come before the board on April 18th and give you a much more fuller revised expectation on this and where we're at. Our current part is the bond market in January and February was fairly volatile, meaning there's just a lot of up and down, a lot of uncertainty, especially with interest rate changes by the Fed. Right now, the debt service associated with the interest rate is actually less currently right now than what was projected earlier. We had that, RBC had that calculated at about 4.5%. Right now, we're at 4.42% currently. Again, this is a moving target that can move at any time. Anytime the Fed chair decides to make a move, that can have movement in the market. But I just want to keep you apprised of what's going on with that we are in the midst of pulling up all of our presentations. We will need to go before the rating agencies again to just give them an update. At this point, it's really a refresher compared to now that we will have audited financial statements. We're in a much stronger position than we were the initial presentation. So we're looking for good news on that at that point. Hopefully I didn't jinx that. But we're looking for good news on that front, and that'll be coming before the board on the 18th. So that was all I had for this portion of the meeting. Okay.
Are there any questions?
Any questions?
And this will come back before the full regular board on the 18th.
That's correct.
Matt will be here.
Matt will give that presentation.
So the interest rate, as you said, it's 4.42 today, but who knows, it'll be a week from today.
It hasn't been too volatile as of the last month. It's not been too volatile, but it does move around. So it was very volatile earlier this year.
And what will the amount of the bonds that we're going to be discussing? And I understand this has to go to the city council, go to the full board, and then the city council.
Absolutely.
But it'll cover that, but it will also.
So the total amount of the bonds currently projected is going to be for the borrowing is going to be for $84 million, and that's going to cover the $77.5 million for the payment itself. It will also provide for almost just about a $7.5 million debt service reserve, and that's basically what they do. The rating agencies and your bondholders want you to set aside 1 full year of debt service payment, principal and interest, into a reserve account.
Okay,
And
so that'll be reflected in the
Total borrowing.
financials also, that reserve fund.
That's
Once
correct.
that
You'll
comes
see,
to
you'll see that as a restricted reserve amount.
pass. Are there any questions, Mr. Davis, Mr. Harville? Okay, and so this was just a warm-up to get us
That's all it is.
ready for the 18th when things actually happen.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
so we have accomplished the resolution that you needed on the system delivery rates and
Yes.
discretionary rate schedules.
That's correct.
So that's what you needed, that resolution.
Yes,
Okay. Is there anything else further to become the board?
that's all I have.
It's very short, and I certainly thank the council members and Mr. Atkinson for attending today. It's always nice to have you here. This meeting is now adjourned.
Great, thank you.